Is eCash finally the savior to some of our Bitcoin payment ills? Will I finally be able to buy that cup of coffee without some of the challenges that come with existing solutions? Or are there trade-offs that make this entirely untenable? Today we discuss. Let's jump in. This video is made possible by Bitcoin trading cards, and I am pumped to have them as the first sponsor on my channel. I met Aladdin and the team back at Pacific Bitcoin 2022, and I'm not going to lie, at the time I thought, okay, cool, a quirky little Bitcoin project, but little could I have imagined at the time how this project would capture imaginations. I've personally used these to orange pill people that I care about in my life. The art is stunning and features Bitcoin artists all around the world. You get high quality Bitcoin education on topics like economics and freedom as part of that, which makes this, as you can imagine, a really special project for me. And I'm not gonna lie, it makes you want to collect these. The community behind this is also truly insane. And I think they have a real shot at bringing Bitcoin to the mainstream. So if you're curious to check them out, head over to btc-tc.com where you can find the different series they've launched. And hey, if you do end up snagging some cards, you'll also get some Bitcoin rewards back on your purchase, powered by Jolts. Here's to ripping packs and stacking sats. Okay, so what I'm going to do with today's video is really try and lay the landscape out, help you get your arms around eCash, around Cashu. Why is it potentially very important in the story of Bitcoin? What are some of the trade-offs? What are some of the tools that you can be using already to engage with all of this? But be sure you're subscribed because I will no doubt do some more in-depth tutorials on specific tools as a follow-up to today's video. But I want to start things off with some motivation. Why is this important to even be talking about in the first place? Well, we can look at the existing sort of payments layer of Bitcoin, which is of course the Lightning Network, this L2 on top of Bitcoin. Lightning, I think, has gone through some interesting evolution over the course of its history. Very, very early on, maybe 2017, 18, 19, I think people were overly pessimistic. They said, oh, this thing's never going to work. It's just a pipe dream. There's too many challenges. And then as we got into 2020, 2021, 2022, I think people were potentially overly optimistic. Oh, this is going to be the end-all, be-all scaling tool for Bitcoin, and we don't need anything else. And Lightning is going to be perfect. And then in 2023 and into 2024, we have seen some of the pitfalls with Lightning. I have a whole playlist, by the way, on the Lightning Network. If you are newer to Lightning and or how it works, I would invite you to check that playlist out. But Lightning does have its challenges, particularly when using it in a non-custodial fashion. Custodial Lightning is a breeze. I mean, it's beautiful. It's quick, it's fast, it's easy. There are still some UX considerations like, me having to create a payment invoice, then share it with you to have you pay that for me, right? That's not how payments work. But with the advent of things like Lightning addresses, that's getting better and better. Bolt 12 is another consideration, because the important consideration for Lightning is that to use it in a non-custodial fashion, you have to be running your own Lightning node. So either, a standalone machine at home or in a cloud somewhere that is running LND or some sort of Lightning implementation. Or there are, of course, now a number of self-custodial wallets, such as Breeze, such as Phoenix, who unfortunately, given all the privacy stuff we've seen unfold, has made the decision to remove itself from the App Store in the US. If you're not up to speed on all of that, check out any of my most recent videos. I cover that in detail. But suffice it to say, there are a number of non-custodial Lightning wallets now that make that user experience a lot easier, right? You're running your very own little Lightning node as a light client in your device, in your phone. And what's happening is that the first time you receive a payment, an LSP or Lightning service provider is opening a payment channel with you so that you can receive that payment. Because without that, without what's called inbound liquidity, you actually can't receive a payment on Lightning. And so this is a problem in usability that a lot of people have faced. Before LSPs made that a lot easier. And even with it, there are still some challenges, right? I might see an unexpected fee when an LSP has to open a new channel with me in order to receive more value in. And with high on-chain fees that we saw across the course of 2023 and 2024, that was really the catalyst that made a lot of people say, oh, well, maybe Lightning is not the end-all, be-all scaling solution. Because guess what? If we wanted to get all 8 billion people on Earth their very own Lightning channel, it would take years and years and years maxing out all the available Bitcoin block space. And don't get me wrong, there are a whole slew of things like channel factories, covenants that can help with that in a big way. But what I'm attempting to do is articulate why some have said, well, that's just not good enough. And while Lightning is this truly excellent payment settlement layer, some have asked the question, well, is it really the right solution for the end user? Right? Like, let's analogize this. If Bitcoin on-chain payments are like moving heavy freight on a train, right? Like heavy train cars. And then Lightning is like a truck that's going and taking that cargo across major highways. Is there something else needed for that last mile delivery, i.e., getting it to, you, the end user on your rural country road? And again, the payment analogy there is using that for an everyday good or service that you might be buying. And so what emerges from that is this idea of an L3, right? And this can be thought about as a messaging layer. Think about when you go and use a Visa or MasterCard to pay for something. Visa and MasterCard are not moving any of your money. They are simply a messaging layer telling the banks where to make debits and credits or where to move money, right? So that you don't have to kind of, take out your checkbook or write out your bank details or whatever. Visa and MasterCard, for better or worse, makes that process really easy. So what is that analogous messaging layer for Bitcoin? Well, we've started to see different examples of that. Nostr is a great one. I just did a video on an update on all things Nostr that you should definitely take a look at. There's things like Fedimint, which I've done a video on in the past. And then there's also things like eCash or Cashu, which will be the main focus for today. So eCash itself was invented by notable cryptographer David Chaum in the 80s and was ultimately implemented as DigiCash in the 90s. And the essence of this is a digital bearer token that sits locally on your device and that is cryptographically signed by a bank or a mint who issues that token. Fast forward to today, Cashu is a free and open source protocol building on that foundation of Chaumian eCash using Bitcoin for settlement. Okay, so why is this helpful? Well, there's a number of really killer benefits to this. Number one, it solves for offline payments. This is a humongous problem with Lightning, wherein to receive value, my Lightning node has to be online. It has to be online at all times. And so you're either running a Lightning node yourself that is online at all times, or you have your little mobile wallet that's running a light client version of a Lightning node that, again, you have to keep open and kind of running at all times. Or there are some kind of trusted, almost escrow type things that can kind of hold your payment until you come back online. So again, there are some solutions being put in place for this, but offline payments, the ability to receive value when you're offline, has historically been a challenge with the Lightning Network. It's arguably more user-friendly in the sense that there is not this need for like multiple handshakes happening, right? Even if you are using a Lightning address, which makes it so that you can avoid that process of creating an invoice, giving you the invoice, you paying the invoice. There are still what are called handshakes happening back in the background. And so with eCash, it's just like, boom, send, like that's it. And then lastly, one of the huge benefits is around privacy. So eCash uses blind signatures, which makes it so that no one, not even the mint, knows and can trace what payments are happening, rendering this really just peer-to-peer, right? Like I'm sending eCash to you. No one can spy on that, not even the mint themselves. If you're curious for some of the more technical details, you can take a look at some of their documentation here, which I will link in the description. and it uses blind Diffie-Hellman key exchange as the cryptographic scheme that enables all of this. So those are some humongous benefits, right? What's the trade-off? What's the catch? Well, if there's anything we've learned, it is that there always is one, first and foremost. And in the case of Cashu and eCash in general, that trade-off is the trust that you need to place in mints, right? Mints are custodying your funds. How this would typically happen is you can deposit some Bitcoin over the Lightning Network. So Lightning still has a very important role in all of this. Lightning is still going to be the settlement layer that interoperates all these different L3s or what have you, right? Because I don't necessarily want to wait for an on-chain transaction to confirm or have multiple confirmations before I get issued my digital eCash. And so naturally, every mint is going to effectively be a Lightning node. And so what will happen is I pay in sats over Lightning and I get in exchange issued the eCash. And then if I wanted to send that value back to maybe a different Lightning wallet or whatever as Satoshis, I would be burning those eCash tokens with that mint, who I am then trusting would send me the actual Bitcoin. And so in my mind, this starts to look an awful lot like a custodial Lightning experience, right? Francis, the CEO of Bull Bitcoin, had a talk at Bitcoin Atlantis earlier this year where he has the following comparison table. And this is important. So if we look at the custodial bearer assets, that's eCash. So that's what he's referring to there, versus the layer 2 or something like Lightning all the way on the right. And so importantly to note, with the eCash, you do still get permissionless payments. That's important. Said another way, it's not like the mint can stop you from sending value to someone else. So that's good. However, when it comes to settlement or sort of exiting that system, as we saw, it is obviously permissioned. And he later then kind of lays this out on a spectrum where you have all the way from like ETFs and exchanges to, a single eCash mint and eCash federation where maybe you have multiple entities. Liquid is sort of in that, middle ground as well with this federated withdrawal. And then you finally have Lightning, at least in a non-custodial form, that allows for unilateral permissionless exiting, right? That is critical. Now, anyone can permissionlessly run a mint, which is interesting. So you're going to have a whole ecosystem of mints. However, because just anyone can run a mint, there's also surely going to be some major rugs. A mint can just sort of, run off with your funds, and that's that. And so there's going to have to be some sort of reputation system around this, and we can already start to see that forming if you go to bitcoinmints.com. You'll see the different mints and their ratings. So again, in summary, Cashu and eCash specifically as this sort of layer 3 has enormous benefits as this last mile payments use case in terms of privacy, in terms of solving for a lot of the UX challenges with Lightning, right? You have none of the liquidity challenges, none of the inbound liquidity things I have to worry about, but there's this massive trust trade-off. So this is nowhere remotely as trust minimized as Lightning, which amongst this flurry of L2s that we see coming out of the woodwork, while I'm not claiming to have the singular definition of a Bitcoin L2, one important consideration is, does it have a unilateral exit? Can you exit that back to Bitcoin in a trustless, permissionless fashion? Lightning really is the only thing that has that and can say that. So let's get a little bit more into the tech. Cashu, the protocol, is governed by NUTs, which are similar to BIPs for Bitcoin and NIPs for Nostr. So these are the specifications by which this protocol is implemented. And really the two main components of this protocol are the mints, which we've already largely talked about, and then the wallets, which allow you, the end user, to interact with mints, and then also send and receive eCash, and typically in most cases, Lightning as well. There are a couple different wallets that you can get your hands on already. So there is eNuts, which is available on iOS or via APK on Android, which has a Play Store app coming soon. I will definitely be doing a tutorial on this one, so stay tuned and subscribe if you are not already. It is pretty slick. It has a Nostr integration tied into it. We'll look at what that does. You also have Cashu.me, which is a web wallet you can set as a progressive web app. There's other interesting stuff as well. Some of you may have seen on X Prisms, so makeprisms.com. This is all about using Cashu for multi-party payments. There's a great long-form discussion between Bob Scully, who is working on all of that, and David King on YouTube, if you would like to check that out in Bob's own words. But he makes a good point. It's kind of like, well, you know, traditional payments is pretty good if we're being really honest, at least from a UX standpoint. Like, there's not really a way to 10x just the UX for traditional payments. It's already pretty much solved. Again, this is his argument, but what you certainly can 10x or even 100x is multi-party payments, which Bitcoin, being information, being this internet native money, is very, very good at. Because what's the internet good at? It's good at getting information to lots of different people. So Prisms looks to really lean into that specific benefit of Bitcoin. And so they have some cool examples here of like a Discord Zap bot or, you know, this Nostr Zap app. Both of these would enable you to push value to tons of different individuals very quickly and easily. And all of these examples, by the way, use Nostr Wallet Connect, which I covered in my last video on Nostr, which enables really any Lightning wallet to interact with other applications such as Discord or whatever the case is. I believe Bob is also building Boardwalk Cash. You can go to boardwalkcash.com. That's also live. And what's interesting here is it introduces this concept of stable cash, which allows you to have stable value in a, for example, dollar-denominated eCash token. And again, some of you may groan and say, gosh, you know, why on earth would we want that? But this is yet another crack at a nut, pun intended, that has been ongoing for years now, which is how do I get essentially a stable form of value, a stable coin of some kind on Bitcoin? And I can tell you personally, firsthand, there is immense demand for that globally. And arguably it represents this stepping stone for getting people onto the Bitcoin network, even if it's in a way that you and I may or may not use ourselves. At my company Jolts, we're building a lot of stuff around Taproot assets. One of the key use cases being looked at there is stablecoins as well. And so in the case of Boardwalk Cash, there are some of these mints, such as the Stable Nut Mint, which enables this stable form of token value. And how each of them are going to do this is going to vary immensely. And some of them, in the case of StableNut, is using something called stable channels. There's a really fascinating thread on X that you can reference if you're curious to see how this works. Really, really interesting. Other mints might use a centralized exchange to just maintain some sort of a peg with dollars. Others might use Taproot assets as stablecoins, as their sort of reserves. So it'll be interesting to see, but again, just wanted to highlight some of the interesting things being built. You can also take a look at some of the other projects in this link, docs.cashu.space/projects. Again, I'll link that in the description down below. But there you have it. So again, in today's video, I wanted to lay the groundwork for understanding Cashu as this modern implementation of Chaumian eCash using Bitcoin as settlement. We talked about how that sort of works with mints and then wallets, and we highlighted some of the tools that you can start taking a look at. But we also talked about this big trade-off, and I am curious to hear, what are your thoughts? What do you think of that trade-off? Is this interesting in solving some of the UX considerations around Lightning as payment solution for an end user? And how do those merits compare to, in your mind, to this massive trust assumption and trade-off? Let me know in the comments down below, but I hope you found this valuable and insightful. If you did, you already know what to do. Give this video a like, use the share feature underneath this video. That really does help get this to a broader audience. And if you were so enamored with this content and you want to donate to a pleb, which really does help me continue to make these videos, You can do so in a number of ways. You can use the YouTube Super Thanks feature built directly into YouTube, or you can zip some sats over Lightning to my Lightning address, me at www.ianmajor.xyz, or ragermajor@getalby.com. And for those of you that want to get in touch with me, I'm now working with a number of clients one-on-one across a whole bevy of topics, whether it's self-custody, running a node, accepting Bitcoin payments, privacy best practices, and more. You can reach out to me at vita.io/IanMajor. But for now, we'll go ahead and leave things here. As a reminder, every sat counts. And until next time, my friends, I'll see you then.